Okay, we're live. So we wanted to finish off Simon Kufa and test today. With Hashem, just say some haras on the way through. Starting with Sif Gimel, we did last week Sif Aleph and Beis. Now we're going to start with Gimel through hopefully the end. So the Shulchan Aruch says in Kufa and Ches Gimel, Yesh mi she'omer shim haya b'gan v'rotza lechol b'peros kol ilan b'ilan. So you want to eat, you're in a orchard and you want to eat from the different trees. As long as you made a bracha on one ilan, and we're talking about it's your gan, it's all one gan. So you don't have to make any other bracha when you go to the other trees. But who, as long as the das helps you from eating from the other ones. If it's your gan to somebody else's gan, that's somebody else's gan will be considered like this bais acher. So we have to say that over here it's considered like one house, and someone else's gan is considered like another house. A feeling it wouldn't even help to have das from one to the other if it's from your gan to someone else's gan. Okay, so what all the Achronim here speak about, which is apparently there seems to be a contradiction, a steer between Sif Gimel and Sif Beis, that in the end of Sif Beis in the Mechaber, he brought down the Psak of the Rambam, which is based on the Yerushalmi, that Achal b'mizracha shotena zu ubal echal b'marava tzarach levarach. You eat on one side of a date tree, a fig tree, and then you go to eat on the other side of it, then you have to make a new bracha. So how we're miyashiv this din of Sif Beis, that even from the same tree, from one side to the other, you have to make a new bracha. And here we're saying from tree to tree, you don't have to make a new bracha. So some people trying to get in. Oh, okay. All right, looks like everybody's in now. Okay. So those who just joined, we're talking about, we're going through trying to finish off Simon Kufa and Ches. We're now in Sif Gimel, and we're talking about what's apparently is the steer between Sif Gimel and Sif Beis. That in Sif Gimel, we're saying that if you have das to eat from one ilan to the next, then if Shasa bracha you had das, then you don't have to make a new bracha when you go to the next ilan and the gan. And Sif Beis, the Shulchan Aruch at the end of Sif Beis of the end of the Mechaber brought down the Yerushalmi, the Psak of the Rambam, that if you ate from one side to the other side of a fig tree, then tzarach levarach, you need to make the bracha. So if anything, it's a kol sheken. There's the same tree, and here it's a number of different trees, and still here das helps. So there we didn't say anything like that. So that's the steer that Achronim to speak about. The Maisa, there's two mahalchim in this. The two mahalchim will be the Magen Avram in Sifkat and Tes says that the reason by our Sif you don't have to make a new bracha is because a fila ein roa makanoi, even if you don't see from one tree to the next, because that was the case in Sif Beis. We said over there that mizracha to marava shaltena, then you need to make a bracha. Over there, pashtus you don't see makamo. So we're trying to, so the Magen Avram is trying to make it, I guess, apples to apples, we'll say.
Yeah.
No pun intended, of course. So that over there it's talking about you enarua makomo because the tree is in the way, and here also let's say the trees are in the way. Even so, says I'm going to run. Hukaf machitzas. I'm Sif Beis. So look back there. Here we're talking about that it's mukaf machitzas. So that's what a kinta the Magen Avram is making over here, and many other Achronim say as well, that if this gan has a fence around it, it's mukaf machitzas, then that makes the whole thing be considered bais echad. And once it's bais echad, then we already go back to what we learned in Reisha and Gimel, and what we learned at the beginning of the Simon here as well, that the bais echad with das. So because the Shulchan Aruch here in Sif Gimel says you have das daitu aliyah. So it's no different than cheder lecheder that we passed before, that the das works from cheder lecheder. We had the big beer halacha that perhaps even without das, mechad lecheder it works. But here, the Shulchan Aruch saying that with das, it's not mamish, a real bice. So that would be one way to be miyashiv that stira. We're talking about mukaf machitzas. The other possibility would be to say that the Shulchan Aruch is really going with the Shitas Ravid. The Ravid says on the Rambam, and when he brings down this halacha, the Rambam says in Perik Daled Haros Brachas halacha Hey, and Echol Mizrach Shotena Bal Echol Merava Tzarach Lachs Devarach brings down this halacha of one side to the other of the fig tree. So the Ravid says, "Behu shelo haya daito mitchila lekach." You have to make a new bracha because you didn't have das. So the other possibility of explaining the Shulchan Aruch will be to say that Sif Gimel over here is talking with das, like it says Mefurish over here, and Sif Beis doesn't mention das. So the reason they have to make a bracha over there is there was not das. And Echanami, if there would be das, then Echanami that would work. So we don't have to go as far as mechitzas, but we could just say that we'd mime it that it's talking with us. So the Mishnah Berurah and Sivkat Lamed Zayin brings down both pshatim. So it starts off saying that Pashut Pshat is like the Magen Avraham. He says in the beginning of Sif Gimel Lamed Zayin, Afila ein roy makomo she'ilonos mafsikin. You don't see it because the ilonos are mafsik. Yes, the kasha. That's what about sit pays? The kan ma'irish mukaf mechitzas. The chashuv kamoi mokam echad. When it's mukaf mechitzas, it's all considered like one place, like one house. The yeshma achronim, other achronim want to say not that way. And this is the Maimon Mordechai, the Gra, the Ben Ozer want to say that the ma'iri be'in mukaf mechitzas. It's like not mukaf mechitzas, but tam heter bezeh u'ishum shayadaitol azeh mitchila. Because you have das over here. So then, according to that, therefore, it says that at Chiddush, that Mizrach Shaltena Daito will help over there as well. Which he says that would be according to the Shitas Ravid. So now in the Sharat Tzion Sifkat Lamed, Lamed, he says that the Magen Avraham didn't want to explain this way because Pashtus, the Magen Avraham learned that the Shulchan Aruch and Sif Beis does not hold like the Ravid. Because the fact that he does not insert, he just says a stam halacha, you have to make a bracha. So how can he say a stam halacha like that without qualifying it and letting us know that's only if you don't have das? It's very possible. It's not so unlikely. It's not so strange that a person is eating fruits under a tree, picking fruits from a tree. He picks from this side that he doesn't have das to continue to eat from the other side. So since if he does have that kavanah, you would not have to make a bracha. Then it's very misleading for the Shulchan Aruch to just say stam halacha. You have to make a bracha without qualifying it and saying that's only if you don't have das. So therefore, the Magen Avraham understood that the Shulchan Aruch, by not qualifying in that way, by not qualifying it, would be telling us that he doesn't hold us for das. Das is not going to help. Das does not help. So that's why the Magen Avraham was forced to say that we're talking about it's mukaf machitzas because he doesn't entertain that side that das helps because the stimus of Shulchan Aruch is not that way. So what about the Gra and the other poskim that do say that? So he wants to say at the end that the Gra will hold that the reason he mentions das in Arsif and didn't mention it before, because it's a pasuk to him, of course das would help before. He doesn't have to even say that because he already told us that das helps from cheder to cheder. Kol sheken would help from one Elon to the same Elon. But he's coming to tell us das over here. He didn't mention it there, but he did mention it here to tell us even from Elon to Elon, a chiddush, that even from one Elon to the next, das helps. He doesn't even have to tell us das in Sif Beis Pashut. That would help. And therefore the case of there must be that there was no das, because otherwise if there was, obviously wouldn't have to make a bracha. It's like a double move on a double Pashut according to the Gra. That he only mentions das by us, not to say that he didn't hold the Rabbah before, but das helps even from one Elon to the next. So it comes out that this remains a major machlokas according to Aliba the Shulchan Aruch, that according to the machlokas between the Magen Avraham and the Gra, and Pshat in the Shulchan Aruch that according to the Magen Avraham, the Shulchan Aruch does not hold of the Das Aravid, and therefore Das does not help from one side of the Ilan to the other, because since it's outside, it doesn't have a din of a cheder echad. It's all just considered different chiluk makomos. It's all just you're just in the great outdoors. You're not. The fact that it's one tree doesn't make it like one room, and therefore Das does not help. Just like it doesn't help from one house to another, doesn't help from one spot to another unless it's mukam machitzas, and therefore the reason that helps by us is only because it's mukam machitzas. But since you don't see from one to the next, that's why you have to come on to say you have Das over here. In other words, if you would see from one to the next, you wouldn't even need Das. And that, in fact, the Magen Avraham said before, if you remember in Sif Beis, there the Magen Avraham said on the Tena, Tzarech Levarech, Magen Avraham and Hayes said, it came into She'enu Roa Makomo Harishon, Ein Sif Gimel. So the Magen Avraham had to be mimed the case by the Mizrach Shaltena and Mizrach Marav Shaltena that it's Ein Roa Makomo, that the tree is in the way, and you can't see the next place you're going to eat. Because if you could see it, for sure it would help there. The same way it would help also by us, even without Das. Once there's Roa Makomo, then Rias Makom makes it like Makom Echad. Makes the whole thing like Makom Echad, like we explained in previous Shiurim, that the Chai Adam compared the din of Rias Makom to the din of Kol HaRoa by Mishkan Shiloh, that there's a din of Achilas Kachim Kalim for Kol HaRoa, and even though it has to be eaten Makom Makudesh, but Kol HaRoa over there tells us that whatever you can see the Mishkan, so it's considered Lifnei Hashem, and that's the only way to explain that is that it's considered Makom Echad. It's a hemshech of that Lifnei Hashem as far as you can see. So you see that Rias Makom is not just like a Tosefes and Das. Rias Makom makes it Hakol Makom Echad Mamish. So that's why, even though it might be separate Chadarim or whatever, it doesn't matter because it's considered Makom Echad Mamish Ad De'Riya. So Magen Avraham, as part of Zakimta, is so there's really like a double Zakimta over here going on in Magen Avraham. One Zakimta is that that our case is talking about where there's Mukam Machitzas and Sif Beis where it's not Mukam Machitzas. Because if it was Mukam Machitzas, even if in a Roa Makomo, like Magen Avraham says, that if you would be in one room mamish, even though you might have furniture in the middle, you can't see from one side of the room to the other, but since it's one room, even without Rias Makom, even without Das, it helps because Mukam Machitzas makes it one room. That's okay. So it must be our case is talking about also Mukam Machitzas, but in Ruah Makomo. And that's why you don't have to make another bracha because it's considered like one cheder. That's the chiddush. And the second akimta is going back to Sif Beis, that there has to be talk that it's not Mukam Machitzas, number one, and number two, it's also in Ruah Makomo. And that's why that's why over there in Sif Beis you do need to make another bracha.
Doesn't it seem pashut from, or more pashut from the reading of the Mechaber in Gimel, where it sounds like he's like doing a taste testing almost. So if I go into like a candy factory and I'm gonna taste one of each of the types of candies, kind of thing. Where here he's in a gan and he wants to try from every tree. That's how I read it. So it sounds like that has a lot more to do with das than anything else. No, is that not how? I mean, the way I read it is the yesh mishomer she'im haya began v'rotza lechol miperos kol ilan v'ilan.
Right. So for whatever his motivation is, whether he wants to taste or he wants to eat, whatever that is, still sof kol sof. If the Magen Avraham holds that if it was not mukam machitzas, then and you don't see one tree to the next, you have your trees blocking, so then you would need a new bracha.
Because your das wouldn't help.
Das would not help, right? Because it would be like bice the bice.
The bice, right?
It'd be like bice the bice. So, right, correct. So mukam machitza is that. So that's why he has to come into that akimta. So that's the mahalach of the Magen Avraham. The mahalach of the Gra is that the Shulchan Aruch does learn like the Ravid, and therefore the reason that the Mizracha, the Maravav Shaltena and Sif Beis doesn't work is because you don't have das. You didn't have das to begin with. You just plan to sit here and eat these fruits, and then suddenly you wake up and I want more fruit. You went to the other side. If you had das, it would help, even if it's in a ruah makomo, and therefore by us also you do have das, and that's why it helps over here, even not mukum machitzas. As long as it's your own gun, it's only considered like in a way like cheder echad or whatever bais echad because it's your gun. If it would be, even though there's no machitzas in between, so let's say your trees might be further apart from you might be sitting at the edge of your gun, and the furthermost trees of your gun might be quite far away, and the guy, there's no fence in between. The guy next door, his trees might be even closer because you were supposed to eat them. Still, that would be considered like bais acher. Has to be your own gun. The post would say. Okay. So, all right.
Is this, everyone agrees to this? Is like Sayer of Sheish, Sayer of Chista, like, because we're talking about Peros, this is all these are all relevant halacha l'maisa.
Yeah, I mean, this won't really be totally in Chista invitations because their machlok is all about it's all about Dvar Mitun and Bracha Lach V'Yam Komen, and we're talking over here Dvar Shein Tun and Bracha Komen. That's why I said
this is according to everybody.
This would be according to everybody. Or yeah. And that's why I said apples to apples and not figs to figs, really, because then you enter into the machlokas, Rashbam and others, whether we'll get to that later on in Sif Hey. Okay. The Mishnah Berurah in Sivkat Lamed Tes takes us to a similar subject, but a little bit different. He says over there that Mishaberach al Pri Lechel Kan. So let's say I'm in one room and I make a bracha to eat a pri in the kitchen. I didn't eat anything. Suddenly, I heard a scream and I ran into the next room, and then I saw everything's okay and I took a bite out of the apple. So I never ate anything in the first room that I made the bracha. You're not yotze with that bracha. The only way that shin and welcome could help in the same house, even based on what he paskined earlier. I mean, well, actually, he says what I said before, based on what I said for the Bir Halacha, that it's only from bais to bais, mecheder lecheder lo. So he himself, according to that Bir Halacha that we saw in the beginning of Kufayin Ches, would hold that one room to the next would help, and this halacha would only apply if he walked outside the house. Let's say. Now he goes on to say in Bir Chiddush, in the name of the Chayyadam, that feel im oches a previyodo. So let's say I'm made a bracha in the house. I plan to eat in the house. I'm holding my apple in my hand, and I continue eating, walking out of the house, which happens often. So he says, even though you're holding the pri in your hand, you continue eating, it's still considered a shunim makom. Echad acher v'lo haya daito mitfila lezeh. The whole psisa v'psisa hu davar acher. Since you didn't have das for it, so the Chayyadam is saying it even from lecheder to lecheder in the same house, based on the Bir Halacha, based on what he says, that this would apply only if you went to, let's say, outside the house. Because lecheder lecheder b'diavad are always samach on the Rishon and say that it's not considered shin and makom in the same house. That we always go back to that Bir Halacha. So the same, we'll just extend this halacha to your house to going outside the house, or one makom to another makom outside. That let's say you're sitting outside and having a picnic, and you make a bracha on an apple, you sit down and eat the apple, and suddenly you get up and you decide to walk somewhere else. So then, even though you're holding the apple in your hand and you continue eating, the Chayyadam says that you need a new bracha. It's shin makom. You're kaveya and you put yourself in one place, and you have no das to go over there, even I don't know, maybe if you could see the place, might be different. You have Riyas Makom, but certainly if you can't see it, it's over the hill, then you need a new bracha.
Can I clarify just, I was unclear. If I take like a banana to go, right, and I start eating in my house, and I go to my car, and then from my car to somewhere else, I have das the bracha.
Oh, okay, very good. So let's get into that, Shiloh. That's really what I wanted to get to. So based on this Chayyadam, so we have kind of a suffix of somebody that I mean, but Pashtus, the case would be the lesson of the Chayarim is the Mishnah brings down is you had das to eat it in this place. So it's mashma you're kaver yourself in this place. So Ramosha was asked to Shaila by in Igros Moshe. It's Orachayim Chelik Beis Siman Nun Zayin. Could I see it inside? Not such a long tshuva, but it's a chashav tshuva on this siman. We get to the siman. So Ramosha, he was asked to Shaila by some Chassidish Rebbe was about people that commonly, let's say, put a piece of candy in their mouth and then they walk out of the house sucking the candy or chewing gum, continue chewing the gum. So is the shuni wakum considered as a machaya to make a new bracha on the candy or on the gum? If you look in the Ramosha, you'll see now you know what he means when he writes tes, shin, vav, yud, nun, gimel, aleph, mem. It spells chewing gum. Okay, you just know what he means when you see that tshuva. You don't spend half hour trying to say what is that. Okay. So
Moshe's not done on whether you should be chewing gum in the first place.
No, he didn't talk about that. Choose not to have a problem with that. I don't know what he held about blowing bubbles or broken on those. But okay. So yeah. So the pastus of the Chayorim, Moshe says, seems to be that even though there's no hafsaka, the fact that you're holding the apple in your hands means you're never really mafsik to eat. So if you're not mafsik, you're continuing the whole time. L'chora, the das is all on this one apple. So you ask a kasha for Moshe. There's a Magen Avram, another Magen Avram, in Hilchos Birchos Besamim, who also deals with our sugya. And his yisod over there seems to be a kasha on this. There, the Shulchan Aruch says that if a person is walking in and out of a chanut besamim, you walk into a besamim store. It's a good smell, and you walk in and you want to have dust to be in from it. So you walk in, you make a bracha of besamim on the whole store. You walk around smelling things in there. So the whole store smells nice. You make a bracha on the whole store. So it says, Shulchan Aruch says that if you're dafka shelo haya daita laxor and haya daita laxor lo yivarach, that the Shulchan Aruch says that you make a new bracha every time if you didn't have das to come back. If you had das to come back, then even if you walked out of the store, every time you walk back in, you don't have to make a new bracha as long as you had das. Okay. That's the psak of the Shulchan Aruch. Ask the Magen Avram, Tzarachiyun. How could it be you shouldn't make a bracha? The Siman Kufa and Ches, in our sugya, in our Siman, Kuliyam Amodu, the Devarim She'en Tunin Bracha Lachrona, Yushina Makomo Tzarach Levarech. Afilu Haya Daito Laxor. By Devarim She'en Tunin Bracha Lachrona Makomam, if you eat payros in one place, you leave it there and you walk out. You do Shini Makom, even if you have das to come back. It's only by Dvarim Betunim Bracha Lachrona Makomam that you don't have to make a new bracha. But by Dvarim She'en Tunim, you need a new bracha. So why over here, Besamim is Dvarim She'en Tunim Bracha Lachrona Makomam. There's no bracha Lachrona at all. So why should it be that if you leave here and come back, you don't need a new bracha? The Shini Makom should be a new bracha. That's the kasha of the Magen Avram. This is Reish Yud Zayin Sifkat and Gimel in the Magen Avram. But Tzarach Lamar the shiny hacha the basofu meiriach osan besamim sheiriach mikoden lachen ein tzarach levarach. Since it's the same besamim that you made a bracha on before that you're smelling again, there's nothing new about it. It's mamash hemshach of the same besamim. Therefore, you don't have to make a new bracha. And he says a fascinating dinyan, the Magen Avram. He says, the dami liyasa misukaso al das laxor. It's similar to if you walk out of your sukkah in order for das to come back in. There's never a hesach das in your sukkah. Since you're walking back into the same sukkah, you don't need a new bracha, even though the sukkah is not dvarim betunim bracha lerchem or anything like that. But still, so since you didn't have hesach das from yeshiva sukkah and it's the same yeshiva sukkah, you don't need a new bracha. Who again, since it's the same besamim, also don't need a new bracha. Mashen came ba'achila, The ochel davar acher, lachen tzarich levarach. And so mashenken, when you're eating, even if you're holding, it's the same food, but the ma'aseh, each bite is a new bite. It's something different than you ate the first bite. Each bite is a new thing. Therefore, it needs to do bracha if you were mishana makoma. If it's dvarim she'intun and bracha makoma, like Paris. He says l'fizeh, same thing would apply as well. If you walk into the besamim store and they have new besamim now, or the besamim you didn't smell before, and you smell new besamim you never smelled before, then you would also need to do bracha, even if you had das to come back in, because it's a davar acher. Then he goes on and says another shot as well, another teretz, which is a little more difficult to understand. Based on this Magen Avraham, Rav Moshe has a long shtickle in the middle to show that to be considered in different achila, it's not just the etzem chefsa of the bite, the fact that it's a different bite, but because sof kol sof, you made a bracha on the whole apple. So l'chora, one bite to the next would not be considered something different unless there's a hefsek in your achila. And the way the definition of hefsek b'achila, Rav Moshe's Machadesh, is tokadei dibur. The general principle he proves of tokadei dibur kedibur dami is not just lagabe dibur. It's anything that is not measured in zman. Anything al pi halacha that's tokadei dibur is considered the same zman, and therefore it's not a hefsek. It's sort of like lavud by distance. Like lavud, we say if it's within shalsa tvachim, it's considered makam echad. It's considered mechuber. What's in between is not considered a hefsek. So also lagabe zman, tokadei dibur, whatever is within that realm of time, that shiur of time, tokadei dibur, it's considered not a hefsek. It's all achila achas. And for sure, the Chayyim never would have said what he said. If you're holding the apple, if the whole entire time you're chewing, you never stop chewing, and there's no zman pisuk more than tokadei dibur between one bite and the next. So in that case, if you never stopped eating and you're always chewing, then the Chayyim would never say this halacha, you need a new bracha. That's the chiddush of Rav Moshe.
Is the Magen Avraham discussing a case where you had just stam das, or you had specific das? I'm going to go out and I'm like the shiloh that Rav Moshe discussed with the candy. I know that I'm not going to be standing. I'm going out.
Yeah, we haven't got to the traveler yet. So far, we're not talking about a traveler. We're talking about someone who was not planning to be a traveler. He's sitting in one place and eating, and then he decided to get up and walk away. That's the case of the Chayyim. Look carefully in the Mishnah Berurah. He says it was daito lechol kan, and then he ate over there. So there was a das to eat there. He was not a traveler. Rav Moshe adds in that for sure, without a doubt, like you're asking, Rav Moshe says that's only if your kavana was your kaveh atzmo lechol b'bais, and then you decided to get up and walk away. And there it will say a chiddush. There the Chayyim said when you walk out you need a new bracha, and there Rav Moshe on that says his chiddush. That's only if there was never a hefsek b'achila. Because the shinui makom is only going to create a hasach das when there's a hefsek in the achila, and you'll say like the lesson of the Chayyim kol psisa, every single bite is considered a davar acher. So that's for Moshe Tainas. That's only going to be if there's a hefsek achila between one bite and the next. So it's tokadei dibur. Never had a hefsek achila. So even if your das was eat at home, if you went out, if you continued one hefsek, it's like one long achila, then the kuli alma you would not have to make a new bracha even according to the Chayyim. That's the case of the Chayyim. However, just hold 1 second. However, if Rav Moshe says it's davar pashat, that if your das was, even though you're still home, your das was to just take a bite here because it's more convenient, but you're not planning, you're not kaveh yourself to eat at home. Your plan fully was b'shas bracha to walk outside of the house and continue eating. So then Rav Moshe says it's clear that it would be nichlal, and when we have Sif Daled coming up, Sif Daled says, Im achal pas makam echad chazar makam acher enum varach birch samazon ela makam sheni kamosha nagu halche drachim sheoklim derech hilucham v'yoshim mevarchim b'makam siyam achilasam. So the din of halche drachim is, even though it's talking about Passover there, it includes also Paris. It includes anything, because the pshat in Shinui Makom, Rav Moshe says, and we see Lashon HaChayyim, pshat in Shinui Makom is if you're kaveir yourself Makom Echad, and then you change that Makom to someplace else, that's called the Shinui Makom. But if your kvias is everywhere, your kfiyas is to be whole. Your kaveh to be b'shas bracha to be holech drachim, even though you didn't actually leave the house yet, but that was your das, and you started that way. Moshe holds us enough to have das. They bring the same, and the Dirsha they bring the same with Sian Abashal, that he said if you did some ma'isa to show that you're about to leave, like you put your jacket on, you did something that shows you did some ma'isa to show you're on the way. So he seems to hold you need more than just das because you're in the house. Maybe the stam achila bais he holds his accused. I didn't see it inside his tshuva. But so what the technicalities are of it, that's a technical question. But Ramosha clearly holds that the das alone is enough. You plan to like you said, to take a banana, take a bite here, take your first bite and keep on going, go out in the car and eat some there, get out wherever you're going, finish it off there. That's holchei drachim, since the kiyos was the whole place. You're not okir min komo. On the contrary, his mokom is the whole entire place. Is from there to wherever you're at the end of your derech is. Yes.
Just a point of clarification, which is tangentially related. What is considered the Maisa Achila? Is it the bite and the chewing, or is it the blia?
Well, it's until you swallow something, then
Until you swallow, until you bite. Okay.
yeah.
So then it's not get.
That's not really tequila until you swallow something.
Okay. So therefore, making a bracha in one place, taking a bite, and then being called out unexpectedly, but you're still chewing. You haven't swallowed yet.
Right. I mean, the Mishabura said already, we saw previously that one should be careful in such a case to eat a kazayas first.
Okay.
Because maybe the din of the chalos bracha and the kuyas is only chala once you had a kazayas.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
I would say that's definitely possible. Because also just taking a bite without swallowing might not need a bracha even. And the shadas is just to be nene from the like chewing gum, like you're chewing. You're never going to swallow it. So the whole hana is just chewing. But by something with the hana is the achil of a blia, then pashas, if you just take a bite of it, then like the din of timas, Michael and Erev Shabbos, just to see if it tastes okay. So the halachos you don't have to make a bracha on that unless you have das minena, the dafka, and swallow some and everything. But otherwise, you don't make a bracha on that. So the bracha that was made on something that's not chayav in a bracha, I think the bracha is not really chal yet until you finish off what should be. Okay, so that's Ramosha's chiddush. That's Ramosha's chiddush over here. That if your das is to eat it somewhere else, then it's going to be a din of holchei drachim. So Ramosha says, therefore, says that when people are, let's say, someone's on the way out of the house, he puts a piece of candy, sucking candy in his mouth, or mix of chocolate and chewing gum, then if he walks out of the house, he does not have to make another bracha, because by both of those cases, even there, if his das was to eat it at home, since he's chewing the whole time and he's sucking it the whole time, even without coming on to holchei drachim, there, according to his shot in the chayotim, there was never a hefsek achila of tokadei dibur. It's in his mouth the whole time. So I saw a few different places bring down from the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish didn't hold this way. Chazon Ish held that there's a mice that Chazon Ish told a kid who put candy in his mouth, sucking, was on his way to walk out of the house. Chazon Ish told him to take it out of his mouth and go outside and make a new bracha. So the Chazon Ish held that that is the Shnei Makom. I guess he held a different shot in the Chayotim, that even if you were never mafsek achila, still the Shnei Makom, it's still called psisa v'sisa is different. He didn't hold the tokadei dibur, but Ramosha held that he held, and Tzien Abashal agreed with that as well. Seems to be the minhag of the world is to we don't stop eating candy if it's in the mouth. They keep on sucking, not to make a new bracha.
He wouldn't make him take it out of his mouth then if it didn't have to be a new maisa.
Chazon Ish?
Yeah, he would have just said when you go out of the house, make a new bracha. Why would he have told him to take it out and then make a new bracha?
I guess to make a new bracha once it's already in your mouth, it's proper to you shouldn't make a bracha with something in your mouth anyway.
Okay.
Could be because of that.
The Moshe saying more than just. I thought that there was a svara in terms of Shinei Makom. I thought that was like more of like a hesach hadas issue. So if I'm having das right in the beginning, so that kind of extends the makom. So Moshe saying not like that. I thought that's what
I know Ramesh says two svaras. Saying two svaras. He's saying that even if you were kalei yourself to eat at home, you didn't have das to leave, but you continue eating and there was never hefsek kedokadei bibor, it still would not necessitate a new bracha, because the new bracha would only shinur makom would only be if there was a hefsek achila. That's if your das was to eat at home and then you did a shinur makom. Even but kosher can if you had das to be eating on whole hadrachim, then even if you were mafsik today achila, still it's not considered a shinur makom because their makom is the whole way.
And the Moshe would hold that if in the case like eating a banana, I'm at home and I know I'm going to the car, but I didn't have das. So he would say to make sure that I'm chewing or biting on the banana the whole time going out to the car.
Well, I mean, actually, if that's what you're doing, then then technically it doesn't need a bracha. There are some say that since you had das to eat at home, since you enter into machlokas this way, the chasanich and everything, so it's better to stop eating it for a few minutes and to go out to the car. And then for sure you need a new bracha. Again, alma, if you had das to eat at home and then you decided to go out to the car, then you need a new bracha unless you were eating the entire time. So it's not a bracha she'en. It's what the poskim would say. It's not a bracha she'en. It's tzricha to be mafsek and to make a new bracha because you're marviach. You're doing bracha she'en tzricha would be stam. But here you're marviach all the shitas to make sure that you're. Some will hold that you're chayav, some hold you're not chayav. So, but everyone agrees if you stop eating tzedakah you're for sure you're chayav.
Right. I'm just asking the field of Moshe, like if in just I'm trying to understand, like that you would have to be eating the whole time if there wasn't das in the beginning.
Right.
No,
if you did have das in the beginning, you don't have to be eating the whole time. Not only that, Moshe says, let's say you have a little bag of candy or you have some different candies in your pockets, and you plan to, to eat candies on, you're going to take a long walk and you take candies on your way. So since your das was to eat candy, it's you made chocolate on this candy, you finish this candy, you go to the next candy and the next candy. Each one is all nichlal in the first bracha. Because since your whole drachim and your das was on all these candies, then you don't need to make a new bracha on any of them. That's the din holcha drachim. I was thinking once that the shot in holcha drachim is like Moshe says that there's no akiras makom because there was no makom kavua. The whole place is a makom kavua. It's thought of the sabras ozim, a dugma. I don't know which one is. I'll bring a dugma from a chiddush that this is the more pasha thing, and the chiddush is the chiddush. But I once asked from Shlomo Zalman, that's all. That there are those that are. I saw Ramesh Shapira. I saw was Makbid and Simchas Torah. If you wanted to sit down, he would walk out. Whether it's for the Sifrei Torah, we didn't want to sit down with the Sifrei Torah moving around. It's supposed to stand with Sifrei Torah. But most of the world doesn't do that. Most of the world, if they're tired, they sit down, Sifrei Torah dancing around. And so what's the shot? How can you sit down with the Sifrei Torah out? So I asked Shlomo Zalman, I said, you need to sit down. So he had one of those kind of smiles when he's going to say something. He said, oh, yeah, it's a good kasha, but Gedolim v'tovim, people much greater than us sat down. So what's the shot? They said the shot is that we have to stand up for a Sefer Torah when Sefer Torah has been taken from its place. Now it's taken out of its place. It's moving somewhere. So that's the general case. Sefer Torah has a place, Aron Kodesh. Now you take it out, and it's moving, so you have to stand because it's lo b'mkomo. So in Simchas Torah, shot is that the whole room is makomo. The hakafa is that's all makomo in Sefer Torah. It's not moving minimum makomo. That is makomo. So therefore, it's okay to sit. That's when I say that. It's just I just thought of that dugma that if your das is to eat and your holchei drachim, it's not shot that you're leaving your makom. The shot is that the whole way is your makom. So it's not a shouldn't makom. The whole derech is your makom. That's why l'chatchila it's okay to do that.
But Rabbi, I'm like within like I don't know. I had a ha'ara just now that like makom is only because of hesach hadas. Makom comes into play. So like what Rabbi's saying is like your holchei drachim, there was no makom, so then that doesn't come into play for your hesach hadas. Would that be a proper way to be masber that? I mean, the only reason makom is an issue in general is because you're sitting down. There is a makom that comes in automatically.
You're okay yourself from your makom. So yeah.
Right, but you don't have a makom, so that doesn't. I mean, I'm assuming the whole thing that we're discussing really is hesach hadas. Is that true?
Correct. Yeah.
So I'm saying so makom it does generally is an indicator of hesach, not an indicator.
Well, let me take a step back. It's not just hesach hadas. I'm just close the door. Right here. When we're discussing, let's say, pas, hochid when they eat pas, which that's what Dal is talking about. So then there actually is an akuda of makam. In other words, there by pas by varmit tune and brachal chervim komam. So then, how are you fulfilling if you're hochid and how are you mukayim that you're mevarach bimkomo? If you say there is no makam. That's why I think it makes more sense that it's more mustaver. I think that's our Moshe's mashma the way, even the Mishabur's mashma that way, is we say that the whole place is makomo. The whole derech is makomo. You need a makom, and you have it. That's the entire derech is your makom.
I mean, so the hesach hadas is what. I mean, it might be a little circular, but I don't know if it's a bad circular. Meaning, like the hesach hadas can define the makom, and the makom can define your hesach hadas also.
But by Dorman Tun and Bracha, Lachem Kamas, Chivas Bracha,
right?
Chivas Asuda, then you have to say something like that. That you're not fkia the Chivas of the Suda by being also drachim. You're just extending what's considered Makomo.
Right.
You are considered your Mavarach Bimkomo because Makomo just is very, very, very big.
I think I just confused myself unnecessarily. I think I hear what you're saying.
Okay. All right. So, moving along. Okay, in Sif Daled, so we have Sif Daled says you ate in one place, then you went and ate in another place. You only bench in the second place. And then when we compare that to Hochid Drachim, they also make a bracha only at the end. So the Taz asks over here that according to Rav Sheshes, that the Shulchan Aruch Paskin like that way already before. We spoke about that. The Shulchan Aruch was held like the Rif and the Rambam, like Rav Sheshes, that even pas that's during Tunim Bracha Lechem, if you move someplace else, then you should need to make a bracha Lemafreya and then make a new bracha Rishona. So, L'chora, according to the Shulchan Aruch itself, you should have to make a new Birchas Hamazon. If you go to a new place, you should have to. Why is it enough to bench once for both places? You should have to bench and then eat and then bench again. So he answers. The Taz answers this. The case was daita lekach, and therefore, since it was daita lekach to eat in the second place to begin with. Then he has like a din of Holchid Drachim. We already spoke about before. There's a Kuli Alma. We said there's a halacha that last year we spoke about that the minig of a lot of Hasidim is to like eat shalosh shudas at home with das to go and finish off to eat a kazayis by the tish, the Rebbe's tish, and then finish off most of Shabbos over there. And that works with Kuli Alma because you have das for that to begin with. Then the Taz says then that with das then you become like Holchid Drachim. That you extended through your das, even according to Risheshis, that says you can't leave and during Tuna Brachalak, that's only stam if you're kaveh yourself in this place. But if you have das, then certainly Risheshis agrees to the din of Holchid Drachim, and therefore you would not need a new bracha in the second place. You don't need to bench there. So, affected Taz, so Taz asks on that, but what about the din of Mizracha and Marash Tena? We see that by the Tena over there, the Taz is learning like the Magen Avram that we're talking over there. That there was no, well, I mean, actually, that there's the das won't help. Even if you have das, Shulchan Aruch is not the one to Ravid. Here the Taz and Megala that he learned shot back from Sif Beis like that. The das won't help. Shulchan Aruch doesn't interject that, so it tells like the Magen Avram, das doesn't help. Mizracha Merav Shaltena. So why over here does it help to eat pasta in the second place, and by the Tena it didn't help? So the Taz answers, and this is what's very important. The Taz answer is that you see that pas is different. For pas, das does help from one place to another, and for Peiros, it doesn't help from one place to another, according to the Shulchan Aruch. From one makom to another. Why is that so? Because he says so what is for explaining it? First, you see a tremendous chiddush now from this Taz. It's a very geschmack, but it's a tremendous chiddush that even according to, like we thought until now, at least I did, that Risheshis that holds that there's a din shuni makom even by pas, even by dvarim tuna bracha lechem makom. If you would go to another place, then you have to bench first. And you have to make a new bracha, and the dvarim tuna does not pater you from benching, not like a kista. So I thought that okay, so pas and peiros all have the same din. Now the Taz is telling us differently. It's telling us that even according to Risheshis, that there is a din to bench if you don't leave mixas chaverim. You have to bench first because there is a din shuni makom even by pas, even by dvarim tuna bracha lechem kamam. Still, there is a mila of pas over peiros, even according to Risheshis. Since sof kol sof pas does have a kviya suda to it, as opposed to peiros, so the kviya suda makes all the achila into achila achas. Like the words of the Chayadim they said before by peiros, that kol psisa v'sisa is a davar acher. Every bite is considered a davar acher, and there's no connection between one bite and the next. That's only by peiros that don't have a kviya suda to it. But by pas that has a din kviya suda, everyone agrees there's such thing as a kviya suda by pas. Risheshis, everyone agrees that there is such thing as a kviya suda. Just the question is what the ramifications of that is. So even though Risheshis holds that the fact that it's kviya suda, if you decide in the middle to suddenly get up and leave, then that's considered a hefsek, and the kviya suda doesn't help you for that. But Risheshis agrees that if you do have das, the fact that it's a kviya suda coupled with das, then that extends the achila to the other place, and that's the pshat in Halchei Drachim. So according to this, Halchei Drachim in the Shulchan Aruch will be dafka in the case of pas. Will be dafka by pas, because it's suda achas and the das will help. So that's the chiddush of the Taz that comes out, that Risheshis will also hold this difference between pas and other foods when you do have das. Okay, that's just what I wanted to bring out over here in Sif Daled. Just a few minutes left. I just want to, in Sif Hey, Sif Hey, the Shulchan Aruch brings down the three shitas of what's considered dvarim tuna bracha lachem kaman. Yesh omrim shiva saminim tuna bracha lachem kaman. That's the shitas Rajban, that all shivas aminim, because it's a din in the chashivas of the bracha, and since you have a bracha main shalosh, you have the bracha achrona, special bracha achrona, that's bracha chashuva, then all minim, including Paris Eretz Yisrael that have that, will have a din tuna dvarim betunim. Yesh omrim dafka minei dogan. Has to be dafka mini dogan. Doesn't say dafka pas, but mini dogan, which that's the sheet of Tosfos. And as we know, the klal is in the Shulchan Aruch that when he brings yesh omrim v'yesh omrim, then the halacha is like the second yesh omrim. Stam v'yesh omrim, then the halacha is like the stam. But yesh omrim v'yesh omrim, then the halacha is like the second yesh omrim. So the Shulchan Aruch is passing like Tosfos and the Rosh that during tuna bracha lachem will include pas and shivas and mini dogan, like Rizonos. The Yesh Omrim, the Ramah says dafka pas levad, only pas. That'd be the third shita. So we have interesting machlokas here, the halacha, that the Magen Avraham says that Yesh Omrim Zayin Minin Lochatchila Yachmer LeBarach Menkomo Chelin Shinim Welcome Ain't Sarach LeBarach Al Kol Zayin Minin. When Ram is Mitzaref over here, the Dasa Rashbam L'Chumra, to say that since it is a day in Shulchan Aruch, therefore somebody should Chatchila be careful to, number one, if you eat, let's say, figs, and now you want to make a bracha achona, Chatchila to make that bracha b'mkomo. If you walked away, Chatchila should come back and make it b'mkomo, to be yotze shitas Rashbam. According to Tosfos, you don't need to. It's not, even though it has a bracha arucha, there's no din to make it any more than you would have to buy an apple. An apple, you can make the brain of fashas wherever you want. But by Zayin Minim, to be yotze Rashbam, Chatchila should come back and make it b'mkomo. Number two, he says also that if you were Mishana Makomo, let's say you did go from Cheder to Cheder without Das, whatever, then in place of consider Shini Makom. So since, according to the Rashbam, Zayin Minim is Dvar Mitzudim Rachala from Makomon, if you go and eat in another place, it would not be considered a Shini Makom to make a new bracha. So you should be Makom for both. The Gra, however, the Gra brings rayas to the shita, the middle shita. It says Tosfos asked kashas in Rashbam, Ras and Enolei Tshuva. Remember the Tosfos had a lot of very strong kashas in Rashbam that if wine is considered during the Rachel Makomam, then what's the raya against Rabbi Yochanan, etc. We can chazer over the Tosfos, back going into the whole thing. We brought many rayas against Rashbam, and the Gra says it's rayas she'enolei Tshuva. So the Gra considers the Dasa Rashbam to be knocked off completely, is not machmor for it at all. So according to the Gra, if you eat figs in another place, there's no chiyuv to come back. You don't have to be worried about the Rashbam. Or if you do, and the Chumrah, if you're Mishana Makomo, then there's no Chumrah of the Rashbam not to make a new bracha. It's not considered during the bracha lachrei Makomon. And so the Mishnah brings down both days. It's not so clear how he's paskening, but he's with Tsar. It seems to be with Tsar with the Gra. Which Papashas, the Shulchan Aruch himself is also not passing like the Rashbam. So the Ikra Din, the halacha seems to be the middle shita. I just had a svara once, and I wasn't bodek this. I'm just going to throw it out as a thought. We can check in one day if we have time to check into it. That maybe the Ikra Machlokas, the Rashbam and Tosfos, whether it's tali in the bracha or it's tali in the Kfiyah Suda. Tosfos holds that Kfiyah Suda, like Pas or Mazonos, Rashbam holds it's tali in the bracha. It might be tali in the Machlokas Rishonim, whether the bracha main shalosh is deraisa like benching, or it's only a derabanan. If it has a chashivas of benching deraisa, it's very mustaber that the bracha is machayav a din of bracha lachrei makom, like benching is. But if it's only derabanan, it's a tosefes derabanan. It's not no kiyum deraisa in the main shalosh after mazonos or after Paris, then it's more mustaber like Tosfos. We're almost out of time. I just want to in Sif Vav. Okay, in Sif Vav. Okay, we'll try to bring Makatzer over here. He brings down the shita. The tour brings down two shitas. We have the shita of the Ma'arit, of the Rebbeinu Yom Tov in Tosfos and Chulin, Tosfos and Psachim, that if you in the middle of the Suda you have to go daven, then you need to. It's considered a hefsek. You need a new bracha. You come back. It's considered a hefsek hadas. What's it based on? Because the Gemara in Chulin said that if you havelan v'nivrich over there, if you say let's bench, so since you can't bench and eat at the same time, it's efshar. Therefore, you need to make a new bracha if you decide to continue eating. So just like it's efshar to bench and eat at the same time, also davening you can't eat and bench at the same time. You know, you see people doing it sometimes. You see people in the middle of Shana with a cup of coffee. You know, I've seen everything today, but that's still efshar. You know, it's not shy. So he holds that you need a new bracha. The Tosfos was docha that it said that that's not the only Tanai. There's a second Tanai. The Gemara over there, the Hamal V'nivrich is talking about benching. Not only is it efshar, but it's also a Gemara of Siluk from the original Achila. That's what we saw from Tosfos. It needs to be a Gemar Vasilik. And only benching is a Gemar Vasilik, but davening is not a Gemar Vasilik. You don't need to make a new bracha. That's the Psak of the Shulchan Aruch over here, like Tosfos, that you do not have to make a new bracha. So Taz over here has a bigger richus to, in a sort of, in a way, be cholik on the Shulchan Aruch, that there might be a situation where you would have to make a new bracha by going to daven. He wants to say the following, the Taz, that the Beis Yosef already makes a cheshbon. Beis Yosef has a kasha that, according to the Rif, that you need to make a bracha on and all the four kosas, because halal the Haggadah is a hefsek. Halal the Haggadah is not a siluk. It's not a gemar v'siluk. It's not like benching. It's a siluk from Achila. It's just a thing in the way that you can't say halal and Haggadah while you're eating. So it's yefshar. So what's shot in the Rif? The Rif seems to be a riot to the Rit, to the Rebbeinu Yom Tov, that even without a siluk of gemara, as long as it's yefshar, that's enough. That's the way. So he says, and Hanami, it's a good kasha. And Taka the Rif and the Rebbeinu Yom Tov will be the same shita. Taka, according to the Rif, you go daven, you would have to make a new bracha if you went to daven in the middle, or even if you didn't go anywhere, you just stood up and daven in the middle of your meal, and then you sat back down. You have to make a new bracha because you couldn't eat and daven at the same time. The Rif will take a hold that way. But since we, the Sfardim, Paskin, that says the Beis Yosef, you don't make a new bracha on all daled kosas, we only on the first and the third. So we're holding that that the halal haggadah are not a hefsek, just like tefillah is not a hefsek. So it's really tali havaha. So obvious. So that's the Beis Yosef points. So it'll be a kasha on our minig Ashkenazim. We do make a bracha on all daled kosas. So how come the Ramah, and that's a psak of the Ramah on Tafai and Dalet Hilchos Pesach? How come the Ramah over here doesn't say, according to what we said in Hilchos Pesach, you should have to make a new bracha if you daven in the middle of the chila? Why does the Ramah not more of that over here? So I thought you could say, and I found afterwards that it's a remnant to this in the Gra and the next sif, in Sif Zion and the Bir Lach over there. You can look over there that there's a difference between let's say get up and davening that has nothing to do with the Suda, just happened to be that you have to daven now during the Suda, to something which is mechuyad mitoch the Suda itself. It's munach and mitoch the etzem Suda that there's going to be a thing that you're going to have to do that you're not going to be able to eat while you do it. And it's a chiyuv to do that thing, which would be an isra achila b'zman. You need to do that thing, and then it's efshar also, and that would cause a hefsek. So the tefillah, even if it's the zman tefillah, it's not, even though you're mechuyev to daven, but it's not a chiyuv mitoch the suda. So it's not like a hefsek within the suda. Mashenkin halal haggadah that you're mechuyev to do mitoch the etzem. Every seder has to have a halal haggadah in it, and it's usher to eat while you're doing it, and it's impossible also. So that would be considered a hefsek b'achila. Maybe that's the teretz in the Ramah, why the Ramah held it's not a stira, that over there, not like the Beis Yosef. That at Tafai and Dalet we do make all 4 cups, 4 brachas, and here we do not make it because we'll say that chiluk. Okay, there's more to talk about that, but that's I think l'chora. There's a riot that take a look at the Bir Lach on Sif Zion by Shena, and also the Gra over there when he says by Shena by falling asleep in the Suda, that's not considered hesek over there. So I think this he said what I'm saying is mavur and their words. Okay, so that's at least for the time being completes Kufa and Ches, and Mr. Shem will put my makomos out. I'd like to, before going further in the Gemaras, to finish off Reish Ayin Gimel and back into Chos Kiddush. So hopefully by tomorrow we'll get my makomos for that, so we can finish that off next week. Mr. Shem.
Can I just ask? I have in my question written down, but in Sif Katan Gimel on the Mishnah Berurah, he says that he makes a difference between something that you go out to Dvar Shus, and I think Bir Halacha that Rabbi just mentioned also sounds like he's talking about that chiluk, but or a Dvar Mitzvah. Why should a Dvar Mitzvah or a Dvar Shus be a difference between the Hesach Hadas?
It wouldn't be a difference in Hesach Hadas. It would be a difference in the takana of are you choshesh you might stay too long. There's no chiluk in chesed das. It's chiluk mitzad that gzera.
Why a bar mitzvah would be less of a concern?
Just maybe we would like turn a blind eye to that concern because you're going to do a dvar mitzvah. So we'll be somewhat on the fact. Some say that the dvar mitzvah maybe is more chashuv than that chash. Others say that since you're going for a dvar mitzvah, we know that you're not going to get involved. You're not going to let a mitzvah cause an avera. So you'll make sure you come back to bench in time.
Mishabur is really holding us to be very early.
Yes.
It's just to meet those standards.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
All right.
I'm sure he's right.
Hope so.
All right. Call to.
My daughter wanted to say hello.
Hi, what's your name?
Shoshana Sima.
Wow,
We call her Shana.
such a nice name, Shoshana. How old are you?
Can't say louder.
3? Wow, I thought you were at least 4. You look so good.
She's home with COVID, so I get to stay home with her.
Wow, and you get to learn Torah with Abba. Very nice.
Right. That's
Okay. Bye-bye. Nice to see you.
All right. Have a good day.
I'll say.